Hey Angels and Biscuits, CSDL here, and it has been a hot minute since I've done any bookish content, and I do want to get back to filming more of that, so that is what brings us to today's video, which is a top 10 book characters that I love. Now, this is a list that is subject to change, so this is a video I may do again, but this is the current list, and outside of the first character, there is no particular order. But the first character I will talk about, he is going to be in the number 1 spot, and that may not change a whole lot even in a future list. But yeah, so no particular order outside of the first character. So let us just jump right in. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, it's okay. Nothing has dropped. We're fine. This is fine. This is fine. Okay, so first character will be Robinson from the Pern series by Anne McCaffrey, or the Master Harper of Pern, his own book. He gets his own book. That made me so happy. But Robinson is my top spot. He is the only one that gets a spot in this list. I absolutely loved him. Love him. I still love him. But okay, so this is a series that I started in middle school, the Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey. Robinson is a prominent character in that series, and he even has, like I said, his own little spin-off, or his, not really a spin-off, but is it a spin-off? He has his own book. And Robinson is a Master Harper in this particular series. That means he is like in charge of overseeing their music education, their schools. Education is done through music in this series, and he is like the overseer of all of it, as well as like a character who often associates with the Dragon Riders and helps them out with things. So yeah, Robinson, he's very important as a character, and Robinson as a character, he's very good. He's a good character, but there's a lot of depth to him. There's a lot going on with him, and you really get to know him and feel for him, and just get to just be with him even more in his own little book. But even just in the Dragon Riders of Pern series, he was my favorite, and there's just a lot I love about him. And if you haven't read Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern series, I do recommend it. It is one of my favorite series of all time, and it has one of my favorite characters of all time. I think Robinson was very well done. He is a very well-developed character. He's got a lot of depth, even though I usually don't enjoy characters that are very good. Like, I don't know how to put it, but there's a level of goodness about certain characters I want to kind of smack them in the face. I don't know what it is, but when they're done well, like I think Robinson was, I don't want to slap them in the face. And I love them, and I will protect them. So Robinson will always have a special place in my book heart, because this is one of the first big series that I did get into. I've been reading it since middle school. There's a lot of nostalgia there, but also I still love the series, and I still love Robinson. And this book in particular, The Master Harper of Pern, his life story, you know, his childhood up until about the start of the Dragon Riders of Pern. I have reread this one almost every year up until, I don't know, the last few years I haven't, but I used to read this at least once a year. I love it so much, and I love Robinson so much. So he is my number 1 favorite book character. He may always be on this list. This may not change. I don't think it will change. That is my current feels. But yeah, so Dragon Riders Pern, Robinson, top spot. Now, the rest of these, no particular order. They are just going to be in the order that stacked nicely. And first up will be Eric Northman from the Sookie Stackhouse novels by Charlaine Harris. Eric Northman is a vampire. He is very old. I think what was he, like 1,000 years old or something? He's a Scandinavian Viking vampire. I love Eric. He is very sassy, but he knows how to get what he wants. He's everything I love in a vampire character. He was also my favorite in the True Blood TV show, which was an adaptation of these books, but adaptation might be a little generous to call it, especially after halfway into season 2. But I guess counts. And I did watch the whole show, and I mostly watched it for Eric after, I don't know which season, maybe after season 4. I was mostly exclusively watching it because Eric was my favorite book character, and I did love the way that Alexander Skarsgård portrayed him, and yeah. So, if you like confident, sassy, powerful vampires, Eric Northman is here for you. He is probably my favorite vampire in a book series. I think. I don't think there's a vampire I love more than Eric. But yeah, so Eric Northman. And if anybody watched True Blood and they're like, yeah, this is kind of amusing, but then got mad at it as it went farther along, the books are so much better. I absolutely will stand by that. Like, some adaptations, I think, do stand on their own, even if they don't follow the books. I do not think True Blood did that. I think their plot went downhill. But if you kind of enjoyed it early on, or even if you did enjoy it, you enjoyed the characters, there are books, and they are amazing, and I highly recommend them. Okay, so Eric Northman. Next up is Tensoon Orisar Tensoon. I think it's Tensoon. From the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I absolutely loved the Kandra in Mistborn. They are some of my favorite characters that he has written in this particular series. And Tensoon, I'm pretty sure it was Tensoon. I won't talk too much for spoilers, but pretty sure it was Tensoon. But yeah, so I just loved the personality that Tensoon had, and as we go farther into the series, we see some character growth and depth. Like, he's not just a character there for plot reasons. He has purpose. He has depth, and he's fun. Like, the Kandra themselves are fun. You know, different. I don't know that I've seen something like them before. Maybe there is something out there, but I haven't read it, so I loved it. You don't know what the Kandra are. They're beings that can consume the bones of something else, and they will turn into whoever or whatever it was. Tensoon spends a lot of his time as a wolfhound, which I think is very fun. But, you know, he could also be a person. It's very helpful if you're trying to do spy stuff or gather information or just, you know, infiltrate something. The Kandra are very helpful for that. But Tensoon is a little different because he's spending most of his time as a wolfhound, but he is a character I really, really enjoyed. Different, and part of that because he is different. Like, the Kandra in general are just different than what I'm used to in my books, and I loved that about them. So, Tensoon from Mistborn trilogy. Well, Mistborn era 1. I'm sure there's Kandra in era 2. because it's the same world, right? But I haven't read Era 2 yet. However, if you want to give Sanderson a try, if you haven't read anything by Sanderson yet and you want an introduction into his his Cosmere or just his writing, Mistborn Era 1, the Mistborn trilogy, I think is a very good place to start. This is book 2, by the way. This is Well of Ascension, this is book 2, but this is also the book that features Tensoon a little bit more prominently, so I grabbed this one off the shelf. And sticking with Sanderson for a moment, we're going to go to his Stormlight Archive series and pick Dalinar Kholin. I really enjoy Dalinar's character. He has, again, I pick characters that I feel like have a lot of good depth and character growth, and Dalinar really, you see him grow from The Way of Kings to his book, Oathbringer, and when you learn Dalinar's past and the things that have happened and how he works through it and overcomes it and deals with the consequences of certain things coming to light. I think Dalinar is absolutely like amazingly written. I've loved him since The Way of Kings, and I love him even more after finishing Oathbringer. I do love a lot of characters from Stormlight, like Kaladin and Adolin. They're up there too, but I think Dalinar just brings something a little bit more special to the table. I think his story and his character just stands out more to me. So we picked Dalinar. There is a second pick from Stormlight Archive. This is the series that I doubled up on, and I couldn't help myself because there's just a lot I love about this series, but in particular. So I'm not picking, it's not one specific character exactly, but it is the Spren. The Spren in Stormlight Archive are absolutely wonderful. They're so silly, but they're not too silly, right? They are the right balance of a not human character that's kind of comical, but they serve a very deep plot purpose, right? So they do have serious elements and serious moments, but a lot of the Spren are so silly, not like silly in a bad way, but because they're not human, so there's certain human elements that they don't understand, and it makes it very amusing. It reminds me a lot of the dragons from Anne McCaffrey's Pern series. They have a similar disposition where there's some human things they just don't understand, so when they're discussing it with the humans, it's just a very comical conversation. But they do serve a much deeper plot purpose, and they're not just there for comical value, comic relief, whatever. They do serve a purpose, and they do have serious moments, and they do have depth, but there's also a little bit more of a lightness to their characters. And every Spren in this series, like every dragon in Anne McCaffrey's Pern series, I have loved. Every Spren in Stormlight, I have loved. I have loved. I don't think there's a Spren we've talked to that I've gone, nope, not you. Nope, I've loved everyone, even the not so nice ones. But I couldn't pick just one because there's so many Spren and they're all lovely and I love them all. And I'm just gonna cheat here and say the Spren from Stormlight Archives is my choice. That is, they are all going to be one answer because they're all amazing. And if you've read Stormlight and the Spren are not your favorite, why? Please tell me why. Like, okay, I get some of the humans are amazing, but like, everybody should love the Spren, right? Like, because they're so fun and I love them all. Like, Syl and pattern, and even the Stormfather, and oh, what was Lift's Spren? Oh, he's so fun. He's oh, I can't remember his name, but I love him too. Like they're all just, I love them all. Okay, Dalinar Cullen and the Spren from Stormlight Archive. I tried my best not to take two from the same series, but it was unavoidable. Next, we have a classic, Dorian Gray from The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde did something so wonderful with this book. It is my favorite classic. Um, and Dorian, whew, he is like the definition of a tragic character for me, and I love that. That is kind of why he makes this list. He's memorable, and he makes a lasting impact. When I think about like tragic characters, he's one of the first ones that come to mind. It was very well written, and like I said, Dorian's a very tragic character. Um, but it's a very good story. I really liked the story. It's for a classic. It's very good. Some classics are a little bit harder to get through or read because of the way they're written. But Oscar Wilde, he did it in a way that I thought worked very well. It's not that difficult, and there's a lot of, again, depth. I'm going to use depth a lot, I'm sure, to Dorian Gray's character. So Dorian has depth. He's a tragic character, and he's got some relatable things going on with him as a character. Like you can kind of go, yeah, I feel you, man. But did we need to go this far? He needed to, I guess. That's what makes him a tragic character. But yeah, so depth, tragic. There is some relatable things about Dorian, so it's not like you can't connect with his character at all. He's actually got a lot of relatable qualities, and then you just watch the story and his character just um, you watch the tragedy unfold, and it's wonderful. So yeah, Dorian Gray. Next character on this list is going to be Uwe. Uwe. Hmm. Our main character from Frederick Bachman's A Man Called Ove. I never remember which way that's supposed to be pronounced. I am sorry. But Bachman is a very, very good character writer. Like you read Bachman's books and his characters feel so real, like you could know them, they could be your neighbors. He's very good at character writing. And whoever translates his books also does a fantastic job because Bachman is a Swedish author. The books are originally in Swedish. So, props to his translator too, who is, let's look up his name quick, because I think translators deserve a shout out as well. Henning Koch. Okay. Shout out to Henning Koch for doing a wonderful translation. But Ove is a very grumpy old man who's going through some stuff, some very tragic feelings and stuff. He's also kind of a tragic character in the beginning, but he kind of goes bittersweet, not tragic. It doesn't stay tragic. He's just where we start with him. So Ove is very grumpy, and he's going through a lot of things and going through a lot of emotions, and as the story unfolds, you get to know him, you know what he's going through, and it is relatable to a lot of people. And that is one thing Bachman is very good at. It's telling a story that many people can relate to. And for Ove, his character for me was so well done. I remember him. I He is a character I go back to frequently, thinking about, like, oh, that was so good. Oh, that was so well done, and I loved so much about it. This is also one of my favorite books that I think I've ever read. I just love it a lot. But his character, so well done. Like, we getting to know him was a fun journey. Like, it was a journey. You especially learning everything about him that you do, starting off and how it starts so tragic, and we get sort of a bittersweet ending um, with Ove, and he is just, he's a character that you would know. He's a character that maybe you do know, who or someone that you know, someone very much like him. It's just that real feeling to his writing, to his characters, puts Ove on this list. And I do tend to love grumpier characters anyway, so he was off to a fantastic start on becoming one of my favorite characters. But that being said, he, again, depth, lots of depth, but Bachman is like supremely qualified to do character depth. He is a very good character writer. So, Ove. And honorable mention to his cat companion that he reluctantly adopts as the series goes along. You gotta love when a cat is incorporated into a story. At least I do. Next up, we have Severus Snape from Harry Potter. Now, I know a lot of people love Snape partly because of Alan Rickman's portrayal in the movies, and I do love that portrayal as well. But I do think Book Snape gets a little bit of a bad rep, right? I think he, again, going back to tragic characters, I think Snape kind of falls under this category, and Dumbledore gets far less hate than I think he deserves. Accountability. Dumbledore has like zero accountability for a lot by a lot of fans. And Snape gets thrown under so many buses. I get that Snape is an ass. He's not a good character. He's As an adult, he's mean. He's a bully. He's a bully to children. Not cool. Like, he still chooses these things, but what makes Snape a tragic character for me is when you learn about his childhood and you see that there was no adults in his life there to kind of guide him to something that wasn't harsh and something that wasn't just bullying, because oftentimes people become what they know. Like, they don't always choose the opposite thing, they become what they know. And Snape knew cruelty, he knew uh, bullying, he knew all of those things. And the adult in his life, I think, that could have changed that for him was Dumbledore, and he protected the kids that would bully him instead. Dumbledore, I don't know how much he knew about Snape's future, with the whole like foresight stuff. I know he wasn't a seer like Grindelwald was, but I don't. He could have had one like Trelawney or someone, and if he knew he needed Snape to be cruel and evil to play both sides with Voldemort and whatever, he probably let Snape go through all that instead of helping him. No, Dumbledore. I have issues with Dumbledore. So I think Snape is often thrown under so many buses because he is so mean as an adult. And yes, he is mean. But I think when you look at his tragic childhood and that's all he's ever known, it's not a surprise he ended up the way he is. And he still tries to do good things later on. I mean, he still does terrible things, and it's a mixed bag with Snape as an adult, with his good versus bad choices and his misguided motivations. But But when you look at his tragic past, it puts him in my favorite characters list because, again, depth. He is not just mean. There are reasons why he is mean. It's not like he grew up in this loving, caring home and chose to go be a bully. No, it's because all he knew was cruelty as a child. And it's so tragic. Snape is a tragic character for me. A lot like Dorian Gray, there's just tragedy in their stories, and I love them for it. So, next up is Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher series by Andrew Sapkowski. Sorry again with I'm unsure how this is pronounced. But Geralt from Sapkowski's Witcher series. So Geralt is the Witcher, if some are unfamiliar, and book Geralt I love a lot. I mean, I love Henry Cavill's portrayal as Geralt, and I will not be continuing Netflix's Witcher without him. But the writing of Show Geralt, the writers and the showrunner didn't quite go the same direction with him as the books did. Geralt in the books does talk a lot more. He's more philosophical, especially with Jaskier. I refuse to call him Dandelion. Translator, why? Okay, this is one where me and the translator need to have a chat. Why they translated a nickname? Did not need to do that. We could have kept it Jaskier. And if people really wanted to know that it means buttercup, or I guess that he went Dandelion, but it does translate more to buttercup. But I think Dandelion is better than buttercup, to be fair. But if we really wanted to know what it means, we could look it up. But I think as a nickname, Jaskier would have been fine to leave in the books. Translator, why? Anyway, so he does chat a lot with Jaskier, and they do a lot of philosophical talk. It's very fun. Geralt's also, he makes a lot more jokes. I mean, they did give Henry the opportunity to do some of Geralt's more dry sense of humor, but we see it a lot more in the books, obviously, because he is, our main character, and a lot of the book is following his perspective, so we get a lot more of it. And I love it. I love Geralt. And part of that might be because Henry Cavill's portrayal, there might be some Henry Cavill bias right now, because I've just rewatched The Witcher to catch up on season 3, and then I just finished book 2. This is book 3, the book that I'm currently on. So I just finished Time of Contempt, and I've started Baptism of Fire. There's a lot of recency bias, perhaps, with Geralt and Henry Cavill bias, but I do love Geralt as a character, and he's currently one of my favorites, and there are no rules on what qualifies you to be on this list, so Geralt is on this list, and I love him. And the last one we have is Kath from Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This one is, well, does she have depth? She must, because I really don't enjoy characters that don't have depth. But what puts Kath on this list is just, I don't think I've ever related to a character more. Like, on a personal level, I relate to her. Our main character writes fan fiction of her favorite characters from a book series. She's an introvert. She's just kind of a nerd in the best ways. She's a very relatable character for me, so that is why she makes this list. So it's not because of any particular character depth thing, like she's not tragic or she's not overly complicated, but she is relatable, and I don't think I've ever related to a character more than her, so she makes this list, at least currently. So yeah, she makes the list because of relatability, and since I don't often personally relate to a character. Like, they don't go, oh, yes, that is like me. Like, I can relate to characters just fine, and there's a lot of relatable qualities in so many of the characters that I love, but they don't relate to me on a very personal level like Kath does. That is a rare occurrence, and I appreciate that when it happens. Like, I don't need it to happen, and it's not something that I particularly care about. I can relate to almost any character that I love, or even the ones that I don't. There's relatable qualities in them if they are written well. I don't need to relate to them personally, but the occasions that it does happen, I'm like, hey, that's neat. And that puts Kath as our final entry for this list. This is a list I would like to do again because I'm sure my answers will change down the road. So that was my top 10 book characters that I love at the current time. Like I said, this list is subject to change, outside probably Robinton from the Pern series. But let me know in the comments who your top 10 book characters are, and I will see you guys next time.